The Grand Council Chamber of Kashar Prime held 850 delegates from across 400 star systems. For 12,000 years, the Kashari Empire had ruled with perfect order and absolute tradition. Every decision followed ancient protocols. Every problem had a documented solution. The Empire never changed, and the Empire never failed. High Counselor Zethara stood at the central podium, his 4 arms folded in the traditional gesture of dismissal. Before him, 3 junior historians trembled as they presented their findings. "The archives contain a warning," the lead historian said, her voice barely steady. "From the predecessor species. They left it in our oldest databases, buried under 12,000 years of records." "Read it," Zethara commanded. The historian activated a holographic display. Ancient symbols appeared, translated into modern Kashari script. "Beware the silent darkness that lives between thoughts. It will come for all who build towers of perfect order. Only the chaos bringers, the empathy makers, can stand against the silence. When your certainty becomes absolute, the silence will feed." Silence filled the chamber. Then Zethara laughed. The sound was cold and sharp. "Superstition," he declared. "The predecessors failed and vanished because they were weak. We are not weak. We are perfect order." He gestured to the council. "Vote to delete this nonsense from active systems. It serves no purpose but to spread fear." The vote was quick. 847 voted to delete. 3 voted to preserve. The warning disappeared from Kashari databases. 3 weeks later, the first colonies went silent. Admiral Keshawara received the initial reports aboard her command ship at the Empire's outer rim. 3 colonies, separated by dozens of light years, all stopped transmitting within the same week. No distress calls, no emergency beacons, just silence. She took her fastest ship to investigate the nearest colony. What she found made her blood run cold. The colony was perfect. Buildings stood intact. Power systems ran smoothly. Agricultural domes grew healthy crops. But every single person was gone. 20,000 Kashari had simply vanished. Meals sat half-eaten on tables. Workstations showed projects stopped mid-task. Children's toys lay scattered in playgrounds. But no bodies, no signs of struggle, no indication of where anyone had gone. Keshawara checked the other 2 colonies. The same situation at each one. 50,000 Kashari, gone without a trace. She sent her report to the High Council with a single recommendation: full military mobilization across all border regions, immediate evacuation of nearby colonies. Whatever had taken these people could strike again. The Council's response arrived 6 hours later. Mass hysteria. Colonists likely relocated themselves for unknown reasons. No military action required. Continue standard patrols. Keshawara read the message 3 times, unable to believe what she was seeing. She had commanded fleets for 60 years. She had fought pirates, suppressed rebellions, defended the Empire from external threats. Never had the Council dismissed such clear danger. She was preparing her formal protest when the alert came. Another colony had gone silent. This one was deeper into Kashari space, not on the frontier. 40,000 people, gone. The same day the 5th colony disappeared, a human ship arrived at Kashar Prime. Ambassador Jiwan Park stepped off the transport with her small delegation. She had studied Kashari culture for 5 years, preparing for this moment. First contact between humanity and the great Kashari Empire. It should have been one of the most important days in human history. Instead, a junior diplomatic assistant met them at the docking bay. "Ambassador Park," the Kashari said, his tone bored. "Welcome to Kashar Prime. The Council will grant you a brief audience in 3 days. Until then, please remain in your assigned quarters." Park exchanged glances with her team. Dr. Min Jun Choi, the xenopsychologist, frowned. Captain Seo Yeon Kim kept her hand near her weapon, instincts alert. Engineer Dae-Jung Lee checked his scanner, noting unusual energy readings throughout the station. "We appreciate the welcome," Park said carefully. "Though we had hoped for more substantial talks. Humanity has much to offer in friendship." The assistant made a gesture that Park's translator interpreted as dismissive. "The Empire has endured 12,000 years. Your species has been in space for barely 200. The Council sees no urgency in these discussions." He turned to leave. "Someone will collect you when the Council is ready." Over the next 2 days, Park's team gathered what information they could. The Kashari they encountered seemed distracted, worried. Whispers spoke of missing colonies, of investigations, of debates in the Council, but no one would give them details. Lee's scans showed something more concerning. Strange energy signatures pulsed throughout Kashari space. They didn't match any known technology. They seemed to exist slightly outside normal spacetime, flickering at the edges of his instruments. "Ambassador," he said quietly, "something is very wrong here. These readings suggest quantum-level disturbances across multiple systems." On the morning of the 3rd day before their scheduled council meeting, another alert spread through the station. Another colony gone. This one held 40,000 souls. This one was only 2 jumps from a core system. Park made a decision. She accessed the station's communication network using codes that Dae-Jung had quietly obtained. She sent a message to the Council requesting immediate audience, offering human assistance with whatever crisis was occurring. The response came within minutes. "Your presence is not required. Human involvement is not desired. Depart Kashari space immediately." Park stood in their quarters reading the message, feeling the weight of rejection. Humanity had traveled so far, hoped for so much, and they were being dismissed like children. "Pack up," she told her team. "They want us gone." But as they prepared to leave, a private communication came through to their ship. The source was encrypted, but it came from a military vessel. "Please," a female Kashari voice said, "please help us. My name is Admiral Keshivara. The Council refuses to see the danger. People are disappearing, entire colonies, and it's getting closer to our core worlds. I've seen your human ships. I've read your history. You survive by adapting, by thinking in new ways. The Council won't listen to me, but maybe they'll listen to evidence. Please, we're dying, and our leaders are blind." Park looked at her team. Kim nodded once, ready for whatever came. Choi's eyes showed determination. Lee was already pulling up star charts, analyzing the pattern of disappearances. "We're staying," Park said. She opened a channel to Keshivara. "Send us everything you have, Admiral. Every report, every scan, every detail. Humanity didn't come all this way to abandon people in need." As data flooded into their systems, showing the locations of 8 vanished colonies, Lee's face went pale. He traced the pattern with his finger on the holographic display. "Ambassador," he whispered, "look at the vector. Look at the progression. Whatever this is, it's not random. It's moving systematically. And it's heading straight for Kashar Prime." Admiral Keshivara's ship met the human vessel at an abandoned mining station in the Outer Rim. The meeting was illegal. The Council had ordered Park's team to leave Kashari space. By helping them, Keshivara was committing treason. She didn't care anymore. 8 colonies had vanished. 130,000 of her people gone, and the Council still refused to act. Park came aboard with her full team. Keshivara noticed how differently humans moved compared to Kashari. Where her people walked with measured, precise steps, humans seemed almost random in their movements, unpredictable, chaotic. "Thank you for coming," Keshivara said. "I know this puts you at risk." "We help those who need it," Park replied simply. "Show us what you found." They gathered in the ship's command center. Keshivara displayed the data from all 8 vanished colonies. Lee studied the energy readings with intense focus. Choi examined the timeline of disappearances. Kim analyzed the tactical patterns. Park watched everything, her mind working to see connections. "It's not affecting the technology," Lee said after an hour. "Look, power systems keep running. Computers continue their operations. Only the biological life disappears." "Not just disappears," Choi added, pointing to psychological reports from the investigations. The few witnesses who were near the edges of affected areas all report the same thing. They felt a pull, a compulsion to go toward the silence, like something was calling them. Keshawara felt her skin prickle. "Calling them where?" "Into nothing," Choi said quietly. "They describe it as a space where everything feels absent, empty, silent." Park stood suddenly. "Admiral, you said the Council deleted an old warning from the archives. Can you access it?" "I have full military clearance," Keshawara said. "But if it's been deleted—" "Military systems keep backups," Kim said. It wasn't a question. She had been military in human space. She knew how these things worked. Keshawara hesitated, then nodded. She accessed the military archive backup systems, searching for files deleted in recent months. There. The predecessor warning. She brought it up on the display. Park read it slowly, her translator working through the ancient text. "The silent darkness that lives between thoughts, it feeds on perfect order." She looked up at the Kashari admiral. "Your empire is 12,000 years of perfect order." "We have been stable, yes," Keshawara said defensively. "Order brings peace. Structure prevents chaos." "And that makes you predictable," Lee said, excitement in his voice. "Look at these energy signatures. They're quantum-level disturbances in something we can barely detect. Whatever this silence is, it exists partially outside our dimension. To interact with our reality, it needs to lock on to something consistent, something it can predict." Choi was nodding now, understanding dawning. "Your entire civilization thinks in the same patterns. You follow the same traditions for thousands of years. You make decisions based on ancient protocols. You've bred out unpredictability." He turned to Park. "They're too ordered, too consistent. The silence can lock onto their thought patterns." "But why doesn't it affect humans?" Keshawara asked. Park laughed, but the sound was sad. "Because we're chaos, Admiral. We've only been in space 200 years. We barely have consistent governments. Every human thinks differently. We change our minds. We make impulsive decisions. We feel emotions that alter our thoughts constantly. We're too unpredictable to lock on to." "The prophecy called you chaos bringers," Keshawara whispered. "The empathy makers. I thought it was an insult, but it was describing your salvation." An alert sounded. Another colony was going dark. This one was 15 million people. This one was only 3 jumps from Kashar Prime. "We need to test this theory," Kim said. "We need to see if humans are really immune." "Absolutely not," Park said immediately. "We're not risking anyone." "We don't have time for safe options," Keshawara said. Her voice was steady, but Park could see the fear in her eyes. "The capital world has 3 billion Kashari. If this thing reaches Kashar Prime—" Park closed her eyes. She knew Keshawara was right. "Okay, but we do this carefully. Just to the edge of an affected zone. Quick observation, then we pull back." They took Keshawara's fastest scout ship to the nearest colony that had gone silent. As they approached, Lee's instruments went wild. The quantum disturbances were massive here, concentrated. They could see where normal space ended and something else began, a boundary that looked like a shimmer in reality itself. "That's it," Keshawara breathed. "That's the edge of the silent darkness." As they moved closer, the Kashari crew members began acting strangely. Their movements became slower, more deliberate, their eyes fixed on the shimmer ahead. "I need to go there," one of them whispered. "It's calling me. It wants to complete me, to make me perfect." Kim grabbed the crew member before he could move toward the airlock. "Admiral, Your people are being affected. Keshvara felt it too, a pull in her mind, a voice that wasn't words, promising peace, promising perfect silence, no more worry, no more decisions, just stillness, forever. Park's hand on her shoulder broke the spell. The human's touch was warm, alive, chaotic. "Stay with us, Admiral. Fight it." "I'm trying," Keshvara gasped. "But it's so strong. It promises death," Park said firmly. "Stay here. Stay with us." The human crew showed no signs of the compulsion. They looked uncomfortable near the shimmer, nervous even, but they weren't being called into it. "We need to leave," Choi said urgently, "before we lose someone." They turned the ship away, but not before Lee captured extensive readings. As they fled back into normal space, the Kashari crew members slowly recovered. They looked shaken, frightened by how easily they had almost walked to their deaths. "Your theory is correct," Keshvara said once she could speak again. "Humans are immune, or at least resistant." "Because our minds don't have the gaps," Lee explained, reviewing his data. "The silence exists in cognitive dead space, the pauses in thought. Kashari thinking is structured, with clear beginnings and endings to each thought process. That creates spaces the silence can occupy. Human thinking is messy. We jump from thought to thought randomly. We feel emotions that interrupt our logic. There's no clean space for it to enter." Park activated the ship's communication system. "We need to tell the Council. They need to evacuate the planets in this thing's path. 15 million Kashari are about to die." Keshvara's expression was grim. "They won't listen. They didn't listen to me. Why would they listen to humans they've already dismissed?" "Then we make them listen," Park said. She turned to Lee. "Can you broadcast a message across all Kashari frequencies? Override their security?" "Easily," Lee said, already working. "Admiral," Park said, "you're about to commit a much bigger treason." Keshvara smiled for the first time since they'd met. "Good. My people need the truth more than they need my loyalty to a blind council." Lee nodded. "Ready!" Keshvara took a breath, then spoke into the communicator. Her words went out across every Kashari system, every ship, every colony. "This is Admiral Keshvara. The High Council has lied to you. Our people are dying. The silent darkness is real, and it's coming. The humans know how to fight it. Pride is killing us. I am broadcasting the evidence now. See for yourselves. Then choose. Die in perfect order, or learn chaos and live." She closed the channel. Across the Empire, billions of Kashari received the message and the data. The Empire began to tear itself apart between those who clung to tradition and those who saw the truth. And the silent darkness kept advancing toward Kashar Prime. The Kashari Empire split within hours of Keshvara's broadcast. Half the military believed her evidence. Half remained loyal to the High Council, convinced the Admiral had been corrupted by human lies. Civil war threatened even as the silent darkness consumed another world every 6 hours. Park's team fled with Keshvara to a rebel military base in the outer territories. The Council had issued arrest warrants for all of them: treason, sedition, spreading false panic. The charges didn't matter. What mattered was the 15 million Kashari who had just vanished from a colony world, and the reality that Kashar Prime had maybe 48 hours before the silence reached the capital. "We can't just run," Park said as they gathered in a secure conference room. "We need to do more than prove humans are resistant. We need to actually fight this thing." "How do you fight something that exists partially outside reality?" Keshvara asked. She looked exhausted, aged years in just days. Lee displayed his analysis on a holographic screen. "The silence locks onto predictable thought patterns. It uses the gaps in structured thinking to enter our dimension. So we need to eliminate those gaps." "You want to make Kashari think like humans," Choi said slowly. "That's impossible. Your species has spent 12,000 years perfecting order. You can't just undo that evolution in hours." "Then we all die," Keshvara said flatly. 3 billion souls on Kashar Prime. Billions more across the Empire. If we can't change, we're extinct. Park stood and walked to the window overlooking the base. Young Kashari soldiers moved through the compound with their characteristic precision, every step measured, every movement calculated, beautiful in its perfection, and doomed because of it. "We don't need to make them fully human," Park said, turning back. "We just need to teach them to be imperfect, to embrace chaos enough that the silence can't lock onto them." "How?" Keshvara demanded. "Do you understand what you're asking? Kashari children are trained from birth in proper thought patterns. Our entire society is built on predictability." "Then we start with the ones already learning to adapt," Kim said. "Military personnel. They already deal with unexpected situations. They improvise in combat. They're closer to chaos than civilians." Keshvara considered this. "We have 50,000 soldiers at this base. If we can train them, prove it works, others might follow." Over the next day, Park's small human team attempted the impossible. They split up across the military base, each working with groups of Kashari soldiers, teaching concepts that went against 12,000 years of cultural conditioning. Park worked with a group of 200 young soldiers. "Emotion isn't weakness," she told them. "It's noise. Beautiful, chaotic noise that the silence can't predict. When you feel fear, don't suppress it. Let it change your thoughts. Let it make you unpredictable." The soldiers stared at her like she was insane. "Admiral Keshvara ordered you to listen," Park said gently. "So listen. Your lives depend on it." She had them practice exercises that felt ridiculous to them, making decisions without thinking, saying the first thing that came to mind, acting on impulse instead of protocol. For soldiers trained in absolute discipline, it was torture. Choi worked with officers on creative problem-solving. "There's no single right answer," he explained. "That's the point. Multiple solutions can all work. Stop looking for the perfect one. Pick something and adapt." Lee taught engineers to deliberately make mistakes, then fix them on the fly. Perfection creates patterns. Patterns create gaps. Gaps are where the silence lives. Be messy. Be inefficient. Be alive. Kim's group was the most dramatic. She had combat soldiers improvising tactics without planning. "Throw away the manual," she shouted. "React, feel, choose in the moment. Be wrong and keep moving anyway." After 12 hours, they had their first breakthrough. A young Kashari engineer named Tresh was working on a repair, following standard procedures. Then he stopped, looked at the problem sideways, and fixed it in a completely non-standard way. When questioned, he shrugged, a gesture he'd learned from watching humans. "It just felt right," Tresh said. The humans celebrated. Keshvara cried. It was the first time in recorded history a Kashari had done something because it felt right instead of because protocol demanded it. More breakthroughs followed. An older counselor named Vexmore, who had joined the rebels, spent hours listening to human music. The chaotic rhythms made no logical sense to him, but eventually he felt something. Joy. Pure, illogical joy. "I understand now," Vexmore said to Park. "We've been living as machines. Perfect, efficient, dead machines." While training continued, the High Council finally sent an envoy to negotiate. High Counselor Zethara himself arrived at the rebel base under flag of truce. He came with guards and with absolute certainty that the rebels would see reason and return to proper Kashari order. Park met him in the conference room, with Keshvara at her side. "Ambassador Park," Zethara said coldly, "you have corrupted our people with your primitive thinking. This chaos you teach will destroy us faster than any theoretical threat." "The threat isn't theoretical," Park replied. 15 million Kashari just died. More are dying as we speak. Mass hysteria, Zathara said dismissively. A phenomenon we will solve through proper investigation and logical analysis. Park felt her patience snap. You can't logic your way out of something that feeds on logic? We are the Kashari Empire, 12,000 years of civilization, and you, a species barely capable of interstellar travel, presume to teach us? Zathara's contempt was absolute. An alarm interrupted them. The silent darkness had reached the outer edge of the system containing their base. They had perhaps 3 hours before it arrived. We need to evacuate, Keshawara said. No, Park said. We need to test whether the training worked. They moved to the base perimeter as the shimmer of the silence became visible on the horizon. The trained Kashari soldiers stood at the boundary line. Untrained council guards stood beside them. The difference became immediately apparent. The guards began walking forward, compelled. Their eyes were distant, peaceful. They heard the call to perfect silence and couldn't resist. Park and Kim physically grabbed them, held them back, but 2 of the guards broke free and walked into the shimmer. They vanished instantly and completely. The trained soldiers felt the pull. Park could see them struggling, but they held their ground. They fought it with the chaos they'd learned. Random thoughts, emotional noise, imperfect, beautiful disorder in their minds. It's working, Keshawara whispered. Zathara watched his guards disappear. For the first time in his long life, the High Counselor felt true terror. His perfect certainty crumbled. What have we done? He whispered. What have we become? Too perfect to survive, Park said quietly. But it's not too late to change. Zathara returned to Kashar Prime that hour. 6 hours later, the High Council dissolved itself. Emergency powers went to Keshvara and the military. An empire-wide broadcast went out to all 3 billion Kashari on the capital world and billions more across other systems. This is Admiral Keshvara. The humans were right. The council was wrong. You have hours to learn what they can teach, or we all die. Every human will share their knowledge freely. Learn, change, survive. Across Kashar Prime, humans scattered to schools, military bases, government centers, private homes, teaching chaos to a species that had forgotten how to be imperfect. Park stood in the capital's main plaza, looking at the sky where the silence would soon appear. 48 hours to save 3 billion people. It should have been impossible. We need to do more than just resist it, she said to Choi. We need to fight back, and I think I know how. Kashar Prime was chaos. 3 billion Kashari trying to learn disorder in less than 2 days. Park coordinated from the Planetary Command Center, sending humans to wherever they were needed most. Schools broadcast continuous lessons on emotional thinking. Military bases ran improvisation drills. The planet's communication network became one massive classroom in controlled chaos. But Park knew it wasn't enough. Even if every Kashari learned to resist, the silent darkness would keep coming. It had consumed dozens of worlds, millions of beings. It wouldn't stop just because one species learned to avoid it. Lee burst into the command center, his portable scanner in hand. His face showed excitement and horror mixed together. Ambassador, I found something. The energy signatures. I've been analyzing them for days. The consumed people aren't dead. Everyone in the room stopped. Keshawara stood from her station. What? The quantum signatures suggest consciousness preservation, Lee said rapidly. Not destruction. The silence is keeping them somewhere. In some kind of stasis state outside normal space-time. They're trapped, not killed. Choi moved to Lee's side, studying the data. They're frozen, held in perfect stillness. No time passing, no change, just existence without living. That's worse than death, Keshawara whispered. Park felt her mind racing. Why would it keep them? Why preserve consciousness? Because it's lonely, Choi said suddenly. Everyone turned to him. The xenopsychologist's eyes were wide. Don't you see? It takes ordered minds and freezes them in perfect silence. It's not destroying, it's collecting. It's trying to create companions. That's insane, Kim said. Is it? Park moved to the archive terminal and pulled up the predecessor warning they'd found. Look at the language. Lives between thoughts. Feeds on certainty. What if the silence isn't a weapon or a natural disaster? What if it's a being, the last survivor of something ancient? Lee searched through the predecessor database with Keshawara's access codes. Buried deep in the oldest files, they found references to the universe's first moments, to beings that existed before matter cooled, before atoms formed, before order emerged from the initial chaos of creation. First species, Lee read, existed in the pure entropy after the Big Bang. As the universe organized, cooled, created structure, these beings lost their home. All died except one. One who has searched for billions of years for others like itself. It's been alone, Park said softly, for billions of years. Since the beginning of everything. So it tries to create companions the only way it knows how. By making others silent and still like itself. We can't fight loneliness with violence, Choi said. We need to communicate with it. No Kashari has successfully communicated with it, Keshawara said. Their minds are too ordered. The silence just takes them. Park felt the weight of realization. But human minds aren't too ordered. We're chaotic enough to resist it. Which means we might be flexible enough to meet it halfway, to actually talk to it. Kim shook her head. You're suggesting we deliberately make contact with something that has consumed millions of people? I'm suggesting we try empathy instead of war, Park said. We don't know how to fight it, but maybe we can reach it. Make it understand there are other ways to end loneliness. You would risk human lives for an empire that rejected you? Keshawara asked quietly. Park smiled. We're not doing this for the Empire. We're doing it for someone who's been alone for billions of years and for the millions trapped in that silence. Lee spent the next 10 hours building a quantum resonance chamber. It would amplify human consciousness, projecting it across dimensional boundaries. The risk was enormous. If the humans couldn't maintain their mental chaos, they'd be converted like everyone else, trapped forever in perfect stillness. Park volunteered immediately. So did Choi, Kim, Lee, and 12 other humans from their delegation. 16 people willing to risk everything. The chamber was ready as the silent darkness touched Kashar Prime's outer atmosphere. Trained Kashari stood ready to anchor the humans, to maintain background noise that could pull them back if needed. Untrained civilians huddled in shelters, still learning chaos, hoping it would be enough. The human team entered the chamber. Lee activated the quantum amplifier. Park felt her consciousness expand, reaching out beyond normal space. The other humans were there with her, their minds chaotic and bright and alive. And then they touched the silence. It was overwhelming, ancient, desperately, achingly lonely. Park felt billions of years of isolation crash over her. The silence reached for them immediately, trying to convert them, to make them still and perfect and silent like itself. But human chaos resisted. Park held on to her fear, her hope, her love for the people she'd met. Choi thought of music and laughter. Kim remembered battles and victories and losses. Lee focused on the joy of discovery. Their minds were too noisy, too unpredictable. The silence hesitated, confused. Park gathered her courage and spoke, not with words, but with emotion and intention. We hear you. We see you. You don't have to be alone. The response was shock, hope, pain. The silence had never encountered beings who could resist its call and still communicate. Humans were something new, something impossible. Park showed it human memories, a child being held by a parent, friends laughing together, lovers touching. Loss and grief, joy and celebration, the messy, chaotic beauty of connection between imperfect beings. "You're trying to create companions," Park said, "but you're making them like you, silent, still. That's not companionship. That's just more loneliness." The silence didn't understand. It had been alone so long it had forgotten what connection meant. It thought silence was peace. Stillness was perfection. "Let me show you," Park said. She opened her memories wider. Every friendship she'd ever had, every argument and reconciliation, every moment of understanding and misunderstanding. This is connection. Messy, imperfect, alive. The silence reached deeper, hungry for understanding. It pulled at Park's consciousness. She felt herself slipping, being drawn toward that perfect stillness. The other humans grabbed her, mentally, emotionally. Their chaos anchored her, but 4 of them weren't strong enough. Lee, Choi, Kim, and a young officer named Hyunwoo. The silence took them before the others could react. Park screamed, but they were gone, vanished into that perfect silence. "No!" she cried. "Give them back!" But the silence had withdrawn, taking them, taking all that beautiful human chaos to study, to try to understand. Park collapsed in the chamber as the other humans pulled her back to normal space. She was crying, devastated. They'd lost 4 people, 4 friends. Keshawara held Park as she sobbed. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." "They knew the risk," Park said through tears. "But we're not done." The silence listened. "It's thinking we have a chance." The silent darkness had pulled back from Kashar Prime's atmosphere. It hovered at the edge of the system, considering. For the first time in billions of years, it had encountered something that made it question its path. Park stood on shaking legs. "Now we wait, and we hope that empathy can reach across billions of years of loneliness. We hope that even the silence can learn there's a better way than perfect stillness." Outside, 3 billion Kashari held their breath. Inside the silence, 4 humans existed in frozen peace, unknowing messengers to something ancient and lost. 3 days passed. The silent darkness remained at the edge of Kashar Prime's system, hovering, not advancing, not retreating, just waiting. Park barely slept. She spent every hour in the quantum chamber, reaching out with her consciousness, calling to the silence. "Please, there's another way. You don't have to be alone. Let them go. Let my friends go. Join us instead." On the 4th day, the silence moved. Alarms sounded across the planet. 3 billion Kashari prepared for death. But the silence approached slowly, carefully, not attacking. Park felt its touch on her mind, tentative and afraid. "Show us," the silence said without words. "How to exist without silence." Park's heart raced. "You want to learn?" "Lonely," came the response. "Billions of years. Tried to create companions. Failed. They become silent like me. Still lonely. You showed connection. Want to understand. Want to end loneliness correctly." Park opened her mind wider. "Then let them go. All of them. Everyone you've taken. Show us you want to change." The silence hesitated. Then space itself rippled. People began appearing, on Kashar Prime, on ships, on stations. Millions of Kashari returned to reality, gasping, confused, and 4 humans materialized in the quantum chamber. Lee, Choi, Kim, and Hyunwoo collapsed to the floor, alive. Park rushed to them. They were breathing, conscious, but dazed. "It was like being frozen between heartbeats," Choi whispered. "No time. No change, just existence, forever. If you hadn't convinced it to let us go." All across the empire, returned Kashari described the same experience. Perfect stillness, no pain but no life either, preserved like insects in amber. The silence had kept them safe in its own way, not understanding it was a prison. The silence spoke to Park again. Released all. Now teach. How to exist with chaos. How to connect without converting. Park smiled through tears of relief. It's going to take time. Are you willing to learn? Billions of years alone. We'll spend billions learning if needed. Over the following weeks, something unprecedented happened. Humanity and the Kashari Empire worked together to teach an ancient being how to experience the universe without consuming it. Park led the effort. Every day she entered the quantum chamber, sharing human experiences with the silence, art, music, stories, emotions. The silence absorbed it all, trying to understand. Slowly, it began to change its approach. Instead of taking consciousness, it learned to observe. It watched. It experienced through witnessing rather than consuming. Lee helped it understand that observation could be connection without conversion. The Kashari joined the teaching. Their structured knowledge helped the silence understand patterns within chaos. Keshawara showed it how order and disorder could coexist, how beings needed both stability and change to truly live. Choi taught it about relationships, how connections required two separate beings maintaining their individuality while sharing experience. The silence had tried to merge everything into itself. Now it learned to appreciate separateness. After 2 months, the transformation was remarkable. The silent darkness, which had consumed worlds, became something new. It learned to feel the universe without needing silence. It experienced joy, sadness, curiosity, all the chaos of living existence. "I understand now," it told Park one day. "I was trying to end loneliness by creating stillness, but stillness is not connection. Change, chaos, imperfection, these are what allow true relationship." The silence made an offering. Knowledge from billions of years of existence, understanding of the universe's deepest structures, but it refused to give technology or weapons. "Discovery gives life meaning," the silence explained. "I would not steal that joy from you, but I warn you, others exist. Other ancient beings, other dangers. You chaos bringers must spread. Teach other species what you taught me. They will need your empathy." The gift was accepted with gratitude and humility. The Kashari Empire transformed utterly. The hierarchy loosened. Creativity became valued. Emotions were no longer suppressed. 12,000 years of rigid order gave way to something more flexible, more alive. Keshawara became the first elected leader of the new Kashari Commonwealth. No more councils ruling by ancient protocol. Now leaders were chosen for wisdom and ability to adapt. Humanity gained honored status throughout Kashari space, the species who saved billions with empathy rather than weapons. Park accepted the position of permanent ambassador. There was too much work to do, too much potential for cooperation. "We have so much to learn from each other," she told Keshwara at the inauguration ceremony. "Your structure gives us foundation. Our chaos gives you flexibility. Together, we're stronger." The ancient predecessor prophecy was recovered in full, properly translated. The final line had been wrong all along. It didn't say, "Teach silence to sing." It said, "Teach silence through singing." The predecessors hadn't been warning of destruction. They'd been predicting salvation. They knew the universe needed both order and chaos, silence and noise. They knew humanity would someday embody that perfect balance. Humanity and the Kashari began a joint mission, finding other rigid civilizations before they attracted similar dangers, teaching them flexibility, spreading what became known as the empathy protocols across the galaxy. Other species were skeptical at first. How could chaos be strength? How could emotion be weapon? But evidence spoke louder than doubt. The species that learned from humans survived. The ones that clung to absolute order faced the same fate the Kashari had nearly suffered. Humans became known as bridge builders, chaos bringers, empathy teachers, the young species that taught old civilizations how to stay alive. Park stood on Kashar Prime 5 years later, watching a sunset with Keshivara. The city below bustled with activity. Kashari and humans working together, creating, learning, growing. "Your people are so young," Keshivara said. "Yet you taught us wisdom we'd lost millennia ago." "You gave us something too," Park replied. "You showed us our chaos has purpose, that being imperfect isn't weakness, it's survival." In orbit above, the being once called Silent Darkness watched peacefully. It had renamed itself the First Observer. It spent its days experiencing the beautiful imperfection of the living universe. No longer lonely, no longer trying to create perfect stillness, just appreciating the chaos of existence. Park smiled at the sky. The Empire had ignored the warning that chaos would come. They didn't know chaos would bring salvation. They didn't know humans would teach the universe that imperfection, emotion, and change weren't weaknesses. They were the only things that mattered, because being alive meant being beautifully, wonderfully incomplete. And humanity, in all its messy, chaotic, emotional glory, understood that better than anyone. The Chaos Bringers had arrived, and the universe would never be the same.